The bar smelled of sour bark root beer and despair. The kind of place where soldiers went to drown memories, not celebrate victories. In the corner booth, under a flickering hollow sign that buzzed half-price shots until collapse, sat a Zernian veteran with one too many medals and far too many scars. His chitinous plates were cracked. One mandible hung crooked, and his third eye twitched whenever the door hissed open. He slammed back another glass of something caustic enough to melt a human liver, then leaned forward, antennae sagging, his voice slurred and heavy with dread. "You ever fight a human?" He asked no one in particular, but the young recruits at the bar stiffened. One of them, too green to know better, laughed nervously. "Come on, old one. They're just primates, right? Flesh bags with toys. I heard they bleed easy." The veteran's mandibles clicked together in something that wasn't laughter. He poured another drink with a shaking claw. "Bleed easy? Huh, that's what we thought. First time I saw them. Hells, I wish they had just bled." The table went quiet. Even the bartender paused mid-polish, one antenna flicking. Everyone knew a war story was about to surface, and this one stank of trauma. The veteran's mandibles twitched again. "We hit them hard. First strike, orbital bombardment, neat and clean, just like the manuals said. Their cities burned, their skies blackened. We thought it was over before it began. Then the smoke cleared. He swallowed hard, pouring another shot before continuing. And they came out of it. Not marching in formation, no. Crawling, limbless, burned, bleeding, but still dragging themselves forward with nails and teeth. I saw one missing both legs use a sharpened shovel to pull himself into our trench. He gutted my squad mate before we even realized the bastard wasn't dead. One of the recruits made a disgusted noise. The veteran's third eye snapped toward him. "You think I'm exaggerating?" "No. Listen close. You need to hear this. Humans don't die like we do. They don't give us the dignity of staying down. They use pain like fuel. Every wound is just permission to get nastier." He leaned in, lowering his voice, words dripping like acid. I watched one carry his own intestines, wrapped around his arm like rope to tie off a comrade's wound. Then he picked up a rifle with the other hand and kept firing. Do you know what it's like to fight something that refuses to accept biology? It breaks you. It makes you doubt reality itself. The youngest recruit swallowed, wide-eyed. The veteran poured again, and then there was the one with fire. Gods, I still smell in my dreams. He was covered in fuel from a ruptured tank. Should have been screaming, dying. Instead, he lit himself up and ran, laughing, right into our gun line. Took 3 of our heavy weapons with him when he fell. His comrades cheered like it was nothing, like death was just another tactic. He downed the drink and hissed, claws trembling on the glass. Do you know what it does to your mind, seeing that? When death isn't the end, when pain isn't a weakness, when it's their favorite weapon. You can't fight it. You can only survive it long enough to pray you forget. And you won't. The bar stayed silent. Even the hum of the neon seemed to dim. The veteran's mandibles clicked slowly, a rhythm of old panic. We shot them. Once, twice, thrice. They kept coming. They'd patch each other mid-charge with strips of cloth, spit, or their own skin if they had to. And if they couldn't stand, they crawled. If they couldn't crawl, they threw themselves forward just to bite. I've got scars from human teeth. He tugged at the edge of his cracked armor, showing deep, jagged grooves in his exoskeleton. That wasn't a blade. That was a jaw. Tell me, what kind of species bites through armor while dying? The recruits said nothing. No one breathed. The veteran sagged back in his chair, eyes glassy. His voice cracked now, softer, rawer. I thought I'd seen war. I thought I understood it. But the humans, they don't fight wars. They become them. Every man, woman, and child is a weapon. And when you think you've won, when you've crushed their lines and leveled their cities, they rise again. Not because they can win, but because they'll make sure you'll never sleep peacefully again. He drained the last of his glass, slammed it down, and stared at the recruits with all 3 eyes wide and haunted. Mark my words, little hatchlings, if command ever tells you to invade Earth, don't. Shoot command first. It's quicker, cleaner, and far less terrifying. The bar stayed hushed as he lurched away, plates clattering softly, the smell of acid liquor lingering behind him. Only then did one recruit whisper, almost too quiet to hear. "What kind of monsters keep fighting like that?" The bartender, polishing a cracked glass, finally spoke. "Not monsters," he muttered. "Humans." The bar had emptied a little by the time the veteran dragged himself back to the corner booth. The hollow sign still buzzed half-price shots until collapse, and from the way he poured, he intended to test the truth of it. The recruits hadn't left. If anything, more had clustered nearby, backs to the wall, drinks untouched, pretending not to listen while doing nothing else. The veteran swirled his glass. "Right," he rasped. "You wanted tactics. Not the screaming. The cleverness." He spit the last word like a seed he couldn't swallow. "Humans don't just fight you. They study you. And then they arrange the battlefield so your worst habits walk into a wall and sign the guest book." He tapped the table with a cracked claw. "First lesson. If a path looks easy, it's already a coffin." Our doctrine liked clean corridors, predictable lanes, clear lines of fire. Humans noticed, so they built a museum of humiliation. One recruit tried to grin. "Booby traps. We've drilled those since larval school." The veteran didn't grin back. "Larval school taught you about tripwires and loud bangs. Humans prefer personality." He set down his glass. "We advanced through a gutted hablock, perfect for us. Broad stairwells, intact rails, the kind of place command would marry if temples allowed it. Door at the end stood open and inviting fingers width. Our point unit stacked, breached, flowed in, textbook. The room was empty, except for a table set for dinner. Real plates, human cutlery, a loaf of bread, steaming, absurd. And in the middle, a note scrawled in a child's hand. Eat first. We insist." He paused long enough for the room to picture it. No explosive, no dart, no toxin, just hospitality. We laughed. We're soldiers, not idiots. No one touched it. But here's the thing. They didn't need us to. The steam rising from that bread carried a scent, neutral, harmless, clung to chitin like regret. By the time we hit the next block, their sensors had our exact pattern. Every time we crossed a threshold, something in the walls noticed. Doors sealed. Lights died. Automated shutters split our formation into lonely fragments. We weren't fighting soldiers. We were speed-running a haunted house. He poured another shot. Second lesson. Humans weaponize annoyance. We entered a depot where the floor looked normal, just a bit messy. Bits of packaging, tiny blocks, shards of plastic, children's clutter. Our boots handled blade traps, fire, acid. They were not rated for children's clutter. You ever step on a jagged toy in full kit? Turns out pain is universal. The corridor became a chorus of howls and curses. Each yelp gave away a position. Somewhere up there, a human was laughing into a mic and marking our map with little skull emojis. A few recruits snorted to spite themselves. The veterans' mandibles ticked. You think it's funny. It is, if you're not the one hopping on one foot while a hidden speaker blasts a baby's cry from every vent. That's another thing, sound. They understand nerves like cartographers understand rivers. We traced a signal to a room stacked with old nursery monitors, all looped to cooing, crying, snatches of lullabies. Our motion detectors went blind beneath a blizzard of false positives. A teammate, big, brave, decorated, broke formation and sprinted to rescue the phantom infant. He triggered nothing lethal, just a camera and a floodlight. For the rest of that campaign, every time our comms clicked on, we heard the replay of him cooing, "It's okay, little one," in a tone usually reserved for lovers and expensive pets. He fought like a demon to reclaim his honor. He died like one, too. The bartender slid another bottle to the table and didn't charge him. The veteran poked it, as if it were another trap. Third lesson. Humans hide their teeth behind kindness. We found a med tent, neat as a brochure. Cots lined, bandages stacked. The sign outside just said, "Treat first, ask later." Nobody trusts enemy med posts, right? Except these had been used. Bloody wrappings, empty 4 bags, real patients had lain there. A captured audio pinged through. "Any wounded, ours or yours, come in." My sergeant had been hit. Plasma through the joint. I told him to wait for evac. He limped into that tent anyway. Nothing exploded. Nobody shot. He came back with his arm splinted, painkillers in his system, and a note pinned to his chest that read, "You can't shoot well if it hurts. Fix that." The veteran's third eye squeezed shut at the memory. You don't understand what that does to a unit. This enemy had been trying to kill us an hour before and then patched him. We started hesitating. We started aiming low. We started second-guessing if the shadow under the stair was a trap or a surgeon. They made mercy into a landmine for our discipline. He rubbed a scar along his jaw. Fourth lesson, decoys. I'm not talking about plywood tanks and fake heat signatures. I'm talking about people who acted like decoys. We chased a runner through a market, a figure in a bright jacket, obvious bait. We knew it. We ran anyway. Our prey kept looking back, tripping, dropping things the way prey does when it wants catching. When we finally cornered them, they turned around and saluted. Not mockery, respect. They were a cadet, barely old enough to vote in their own planetary elections. They said, "You're late." Then every shutter banged shut, and every awning collapsed, and we were snared in a net of woven fiber, so soft it didn't even hurt. It just held. We had to radio our own artillery to cut us free. The cadet left a message chalked on the wall. Speed doesn't beat patience. Class dismissed. The recruits looked ill. The veteran drank. Fifth lesson, traps that don't end when they spring. Humans built corridors that stayed with you. A powder that stuck to us and smelled like citrus. Pleasant, actually. Pleasant enough that our suits' filters ignored it. 3 hours later, we passed through an empty plaza, and every pigeon in 10 blocks dive-bombed us because some genius had trained them to associate citrus with food. I lost 2 good soldiers to birds in panic. Birds! And then for days after, civilians would walk by, sniff, and know exactly where we'd been. We were a parade of lemons and failure. He set down the glass again, claws leaving damp crescents on the table. Sixth lesson, the floor is never just the floor. We crawled under a security shutter one night, helmets bumping. No visible sensors. Perfect. Then the ground whispered. Not gas, not heat, whispered. Pressure pads triggered speakers hidden under tiles, and the floor began to murmur in our language. Left step heavy. Third from front limps. Team 2 breathes fast. Why are you scared? We were seasoned. We were trained. And the stone itself was judging us between our ears. We backed out. We found another way. And the ground mocked us for retreating. Humans understand shame like they invented it. A bitter half-smile finally cracked his carapace. Seventh lesson, traps that punish obedience. Our SOP said, mark hazards for the next squad. So we left bright warning tags on every nasty corner. Humans started leaving their own tags, identical, perfect counterfeits, pointing us around danger and straight into their preferred alleys of pain. When we wised up and ignored tags, they left real warnings we stepped over, because pride is the last trap and the deepest. He leaned back, empty bottle at his elbow, eyes going glassy and far. Do you see the pattern? They didn't build a maze. They built a mirror. Every choice we made reflected something about us. Speed, pride, compassion, fear, and they arranged the world so those traits would cost us blood. That's the cruelty of it. Not spikes and acid. Insight. A recruit finally found his voice. So what's the countermeasure? The veteran laughed then, a dry, clicking rattle. Countermeasure? You think you can patch this with a checklist? Sure. We tried. Don't touch anything. Don't trust anyone. Don't step. Don't breathe. Don't think. He spread his claws. Tell me how a soldier moves war forward when the orders are don't. Humans force you to become a statue, and then they decorate you. He reached for the bottle, found it empty, stared at it like a traitor. The bartender wordlessly traded it for a new one. One more lesson, then I'm done, the veteran said softly. They once left us a corridor lined with photographs. Printed, old-fashioned, framed. Families. Dogs. Weddings. None of them trapped. No alarms. We checked. Clear. We walked through at parade pace because it felt wrong not to. And at the end, there was a mirror. We looked, filthy, armored, teeth bared, eyes wild. And next to the frame someone had written, "If you hate what you see, turn around before it hates you back." He took a slow drink. Half my squad rotated out the next cycle. Requested sanitation detail. Sanitation. Said it beat walking through hallways that knew their names. The recruits were silent again, the air heavy with imagined citrus and murmuring tiles. Finally, the youngest croaked. So the traps, they were jokes? Jokes, the veteran said, mandibles curling. Lessons. Insults. Therapy. All at once. Humans don't lay mines. They lay ideas and wait for them to explode in your head. And when you hear that pop, when your doctrine spills out all over the floor and you're left holding your pride in a bag, congratulations. He knocked back the last of the glass and set it down with surgical precision. You survived a human trap. The first one. The next one is the idea that you can avoid the next one. He rose, armor creaking, and saluted them with a dead bottle. Sleep well, hatchlings. If you dream of bread, do not follow the smell. He staggered away, and the hollow sign over the bar hiccuped. Half-price shots until collapse. No one ordered another. The recruits sat very straight, boots drawn closer under their stools, studiously not touching the complimentary bowl of citrus wedges the bartender kept by the till. The veteran was back again. Same booth, same bottle, same twitch in his third eye. The recruits had grown in number. Word spreads fast when someone bleeds stories instead of liquor. Tonight, the old soldier seemed almost cheerful, which meant, of course, that the horror was going to be worse. He raised his glass in mock salute. You think you know the terrain game, eh? Ice, desert, jungle, vacuum. You've trained for it. Protocol says, adapt, endure, overcome. Cute. That works when nature is impartial. But humans? They don't just live in weather. They partner with it. They sign contracts with blizzards, shake hands with deserts, and bed entire jungles. And then they invite us in. He sipped. First was the cold. Command told us Earth's winters would be harsh, but manageable. Our armor heaters could outlast storms. Numbers on paper. But paper doesn't scream when its coolant crystallizes. The recruits leaned closer. The veteran smiled without humor. We marched through snow thick enough to drown a cruiser. White everywhere, like the world had been erased. Humans waited, camouflaged in furs, faces painted ghost pale. We didn't see them until they were in us. Not attacking head-on, no, too simple. They'd pop out of snowbanks like demons, slit a throat, vanish, and the storm swallowed the body. Try shooting into a blizzard sometime. You hit nothing but your own nerves. He dragged a claw across his neck. Worse, they let the cold work for them. We huddled for warmth. They didn't. They thrived. One prisoner told me they trained in ice baths, made their children sleep with windows open in winter. They call it hardening. I call it evolutionary malpractice. He took another long pull. And then came the sound. A blizzard howls like 1,000 mouths. You can barely hear your own calms. Humans used it. Bagpipes, horns, voices, screaming into the wind until you couldn't tell if it was the storm or the enemy or your own squad losing it. One of my lieutenants broke down sobbing, shouting for his mother, because he swore he heard her voice in the gale. When we pulled him back, his face was blue, his lips cracked, and he whispered, "They're singing with the weather." He exhaled slowly. Next, the desert. Ah yes, open terrain. Clear fields of fire, predictable heat. Except the humans don't melt like we do. They stockpiled water, rationed it like religion, and watched us cook in our own armor. Ever see a soldier boil inside their carapace? Smells like rotten eggs and shame. He chuckled bitterly. One squad thought they found salvation, a mirage of water. Do you know what humans did? They built the mirage. Mirrors, heat lamps, a puddle dug shallow with just enough real liquid to trick sensors. My comrades fell on it like starving larvae. The water was laced with capsaicin. Capsaicin, you know, the compound their species eats for pleasure. To us, it was napalm in a glass. Soldiers clawed at their throats, coughing blood, and the humans watched from the dunes, calmly sipping canteens like it was dinner theater. The recruits shifted uncomfortably. The veteran poured again. Now jungles. We thought we'd seen ambushes. We had not. The air itself joined their militia, mosquitoes big enough to puncture seals, vines grabbing ankles, humidity so thick you could swim in it. Humans navigated it with ease. Barefoot, Half naked, painted with mud, they became part of it. We fired at shadows and trees that shot back. Poison frogs, ants, snakes. Every one of them seemed on payroll. The jungle wasn't neutral. It wanted us dead. And the humans? They just let it do the paperwork. He wiped condensation from his glass. One night, our unit camped on high ground, sensors up, alarms primed. Safe. Until it rained. Not gentle rain. Sheets like oceans dropping vertically. It shorted half our systems, rusted weapons overnight, left us blind. In the morning, we found boot prints circling us. Inside the perimeter, they'd walked among us as we slept, counting heads, just to prove they could. On one helmet, they'd carved 2 words into the mud. Nice camp. The recruits muttered. The veterans' mandibles curled in a cruel smile. And don't think space saved us. They made weather out there too. Solar storms, radiation belts, orbital debris. Humans shrug it off like mild inconvenience. One squadron of ours was wiped not by human weapons, but by rocks they nudged from orbit with old satellites. We laughed at the primitivism, until 3 ships shredded, hulls punched open by nothing more advanced than gravity plus spite. He leaned forward, voice dropping. See, humans don't ask, how do we fight in this weather? They ask, how do we make the weather fight for us? It's partnership. It's intimacy. It's perverse. He stared into his drink, mandibles twitching. The worst was a valley campaign. We had them cornered. Storm rolled in, lightning, rain so thick it blurred sensors. Perfect for us to push. Except the humans didn't flee. They marched into the storm, shields raised like they'd been waiting for it. Lightning struck their lines, and they cheered. Turns out they'd rigged rods across their gear to ground the strikes, while ours turned into bug zappers. I watched a captain fry mid-order, his scream drowned by thunder and human laughter. They didn't need to shoot. The sky itself was their artillery. The bar was dead quiet now. The recruits sat pale, mandibles clenched, stomachs twisting. The veteran drained his glass and set it down hard. So here's your lesson, hatchlings. Humans don't wage war despite the weather. They wage war with it. Blizzards sing for them. Deserts cook for them. Jungles stalk for them. Even the void hands them ammunition if they ask politely enough. He rose unsteadily, plates creaking, eyes distant. Fight humans if you must, but check the sky first. If it's too quiet, too calm, don't march. Don't breathe, because somewhere out there, the weather's grinning and the humans are already holding hands with the storm. He staggered away into the night, leaving silence heavy as snow. The veteran slid into the booth like a landslide, slow, inevitable, crushing the quiet as he settled. The bartender didn't ask. A bottle thunked down with the weary intimacy of bad habits. Around us, the recruits had multiplied again. Apparently fear pairs well with free storytelling. The old soldier tilted the bottle, studied the label as if it might explode, then looked up with a smile that wasn't friendly. So, you've heard how humans make the ground whisper and the sky take sides. Tonight we discuss their most profane alliance. He tapped his own mandibles. With food. A recruit scoffed softly. What poisons? My cousin specialized in tox. The veteran wagged a claw. No, hatchling. You poison to end a fight. Humans eat to extend it. They metabolize problems. They set a table in hell and ask for seconds. He poured, swallowed, and began. First lesson, the brick. Their ration blocks, MREs, they call them, arrive in drab pouches that look like apologies. Each one contains a heat packet, a chemical curiosity, and an edible substance with the flavor profile of despair. Your first bite convinces you time has stopped. Your second bite proves it. And yet, they smile through it, compare menus, trade like gamblers. I'll swap you my chalk brick for your pepper paste. One private told me, after I captured him, that the pepper paste tasted like home. Home. It peeled paint. He put on everything. He leaned in. We tried their rations once. Intelligence said morale test. We called it hazardous materials. My platoon's bravest took a ceremonial bite, chewed, and made a noise I had previously only heard from engines dying. He didn't die, of course. He asked for more. We refused. Humans watched from across the ruins, munching, waving, offering us packets like street vendors with a sense of humor. He chuckled without mirth. Second lesson. Temperature is a suggestion. I met a demolitions specialist who drank coffee that could etch glass. He poured into a tin, took a swallow, didn't blink. Steam peeled off his faceplate like ghosts leaving a body. We'd just been fighting in sleet, hands numb, joints locking. He cradled that molten tar and said, "Good. Now I can feel my soul again." Then he charged a gun line. The caffeine went in and a new creature came out. A few recruits exchanged glances. The veteran's third eye twitched. Third, spice. Your cousin with toxins will appreciate this. Humans have a compound, capsaicin, that sets fire to their mouths. They adore it. They make contests of it. They name peppers like gladiators, Reaper, Scorpion, and Pay to Suffer. We laced a water cache with capsaicin once, expecting incapacitation. They found it, shrugged, and started dipping dried meat into it like it was a festival. One shouted, "Finally, some flavor," while tears streamed and sweat rained. My squad stared, uncertain whether to be impressed or call an exorcist. He sipped. Fourth lesson, opportunism. The humans have a proverb. If it moves, it's protein. If it doesn't, it's seasoning. I watched a recon team in the jungle turn a morning's march into a grocery trip. They plucked leaves I wouldn't touch with tongs, scraped fungi off logs, fried grubs on a hot rifle barrel. Yes, really. The barrel doubled as cookware, and ate smiling like tourists. Meanwhile, our supply line, perfect and delicate, snapped in the humidity and mold. We stood at the edge of the tree lean, gnawing nutrient gel, while they argued about whether the grubs were better with salt or just raw for the crunch. A recruit gagged. The veteran nodded approvingly. Good. If your stomach flips now, it won't in the field. Humans target that, your stomach. He tapped his carapace. A siege once dragged long. We had the numbers, the guns, the perimeter. They had scavengers with imagination. Every day, the wind carried smells over our lines, char, smoke, something sweet. They'd found the abandoned bakery ovens in the old quarter and revived them with scrap wood. Bread. Gods above the bread. Half my company grew feral from the aroma. We rotated posts faster than ammunition. A soldier can ignore hunger. He cannot ignore nostalgia, baked to golden crust. He sighed theatrically. We tried to retaliate. We roasted ration slabs. It smelled like synthetic regret. Our morale chart cratered. He poured again. Fifth, intimidation by digestion. An assault paused after we gassed a corridor with a lung irritant. Non-lethal, just enough to make eyes water, throats close. We listened to them coughing, felt clever. Then their medic walked in, mask off, took a deep breath like he was judging a wine, said citrus notes. Cheap. He administered something to his squad, bit into a raw onion to clear sinuses, and waved them forward. One of my corporals, watching through a crack, began to cry. "They're immune," he said. They weren't. They were stubborn, which is indistinguishable from immune if you're on a schedule. The recruits kept still, the bowl of citrus wedges by the till once again ignored. The bartender smirked. Sixth, ritual. Humans make ceremonies out of sustenance. Coffee at dawn. Shared chocolate at midnight. A battered tin of beans passed hand to hand before a breach. Each soldier taking a spoonful like communion. The contents barely matter. The ritual binds. We intercepted a squad mid-tea. Yes, hot leaf water with an attitude. They waved us off. "We're on break," one said, utterly serious. We attacked anyway. It was the worst idea I have ever had. They fought like we had insulted their ancestors. Perhaps we had. The veteran's mandibles clicked softly. Seventh, bait. They know we study patterns. So they leave food that looks too good to be true and make sure it is true. Once, a crate of ration bars left in an alley. We tested, scanned, sampled, safe. We ate. For the next 4 alleys, crates waited. We wouldn't touch them. We burned them. Good discipline, we thought. And because we burned them, we missed the messages taped under the lids. Maps, warnings, coordinates for civilians. We found that out later. They trapped us not with poison, but with shame. He scratched a scar with the edge of the bottle. Eighth, hospitality as a weapon. A town we secured kept its distance until a grandmother wandered up, carrying a pot. Steam wreathed her like a saint. She ladled bowls for my squad, vegetable stew, thick, fragrant, a taste of truce. We refused, of course. Protocol. She sighed, set the pot down in the square, and ate first. Then a child ate. Then a dog. Then the mayor. Nobody keeled over dramatically. My squad leader took a bowl. I let him. He made a sound like coming home. The whole unit's posture changed. We lowered weapons. We loosened straps. The veteran's eyes went somewhere far away. 4 streets over, an ambush snapped shut on a different platoon, one that had kicked a pot over the day before, just in case. That grandmother didn't cook stew to poison us. She cooked it to divide us, into those who could be human-adjacent for 10 minutes and those who couldn't. Guess which of those humans spared later, and which they hunted. Silence pooled. The veteran broke it with a dry laugh. 9th, spectacle. They turned a supply drop into a feast mid-battle. Parachutes bloomed over a cratered park while we traded fire. Boxes hit earth, popped open. Out rolled grills, spices, meat. Soldiers lit flames under enemy fire, absolutely deranged, and cooked. They flipped cuts like cards, tossed seasoning in arcs that would make artillery jealous, and shouted, "Burgers for anyone who stops shooting for 5 minutes." Some of us did. You would have too. The pause saved lives, theirs and ours. They used lunch to redraw the battlefield. He tipped the bottle, found only the lazy swish of last sips, and savored them. 10th and last, symbolism. They eat meaning. Victory cake, funeral whiskey, first peach of summer before a push, a single olive shared after a ceasefire. Every bite is a story, and every story is a weapon against fear, against fatigue, against us. We try to starve them. They fed on each other's resolve and called it dinner. A recruit finally blurted, "Were they ever desperate, truly starving?" The veteran nodded slowly. Often, you learn a species by what it becomes when hungry. Some turn cruel. Humans turn creative. They stretch meals with jokes. They toast with empty cups and pretend it burns going down. They talk about dishes they'll cook when it's over, and for the duration of that conversation, it is over. Hunger retreats from their table manners. He stood, joints ticking, voice dropping to a rasp. "So here's your field order, hatchlings. When you smell coffee at dawn, brace. When you smell bread at dusk, doubt. When you see them passing a tin and smiling with cracked lips, do not underestimate what's in that spoon. It might be beans. It might be courage. Either way, it's fuel you can't sabotage." He saluted us with the empty bottle. Humans don't just feed their bodies. They feed their war. And if you ever get invited to dinner, his mandibles curled into something almost kind. Say thank you, eat, and keep your armor on. He left us there, surrounded by the faint ghost of roasted beans and impossible bread, each of us reconsidering the humble power of a hot drink and a shared bite on a cold night. The booth had become the veteran's throne. Same cracked carapace, same twitching third eye, same bottle that never seemed quite full enough. The recruits, there were dozens now, clustered around like pilgrims at a shrine. No one laughed at his sarcasm anymore. They had learned. Tonight, he looked tired. Tired enough to be honest. He raised his glass, but didn't drink. You've heard the screaming charges, the haunted traps, the storms with opinions, the food that doubles as propaganda. And now, hatchlings, I'll tell you the part command will never print in manuals. He leaned forward, mandibles clicking softly. Humans don't fight to win battles. They fight to make sure you never want to fight them again. Every shot, every trap, every bite of their wretched rations, it's all designed to tattoo itself on your mind. They don't just beat armies. They salt the soil of your will to wage war. A recruit swallowed. You mean deterrence? The veteran barked a laugh. Deterrence is fleets in orbit. Big ships with big guns. This is personal. They perform war like theater, and the audience is you. Every survivor carries the show inside their skull forever. You don't need a monument. You are the monument to their cruelty, to their creativity. He finally drank, slammed the glass down. I remember one campaign. We had them cornered, outnumbered 10-1, supplies dwindling. Any other species would have surrendered. Humans didn't. They built bonfires at night, sang songs in a dozen languages. Let us listen. Not sad songs, not desperate songs. Joyful, hopeful. The kind of sound that makes you wonder if maybe you're besieging lunatics who know something you don't. My commander said, "Ignore it." My soldiers whispered, "What if they're singing because reinforcements are coming?" Reinforcements didn't come. They were bluffing with optimism. And it worked. We stalled. We hesitated. They broke out. He smirked. Lesson, they weaponized belief. Another pour. Another swallow. His eyes glistened now, whether from liquor or memory, no one dared guess. Another time, trench war. We buried them in fire until the field was nothing but ash and twisted iron. Silence. We advanced. The ground shifted. They dug under their own dead, tunnels clawed out barehanded, faces black with soot. They rose from the earth like corpses refusing to stay buried. My platoon screamed, "Zombies!" An old human word they'd heard in intercepted transmissions. And you know what the humans did? They roared back, boo. Entire flanks collapsed. Not from fire, from farce. They turned our fear into their punchline. The recruits shifted uncomfortably. The bartender, polishing a glass, muttered, "That's the worst part." They enjoy it. The veteran nodded. Exactly. Pain is their paint. Terror is their brush. They'll gut you, yes, but they'll laugh while doing it, and that laughter will follow you further than shrapnel. He leaned forward again, mandible spread. So here is your final lesson. Humans do not measure victory in bodies or in borders. They measure it in memory. They infect your future with their past. You'll wake years later to a creak in the dark and swear it's bootsteps. You'll taste bread and wonder if it's bait. You'll see clouds and flinch because once they hit artillery. You'll eat in silence because laughter at the wrong time sounds like them. His third eye narrowed, pinning the recruits. That's the genius of their warfare. They don't need to kill you all. They just need to let some of you crawl home, carrying their legend. And then you will finish the war for them because you'll never volunteer to face them again. You'll whisper to your bridlings, "Don't provoke the humans." You'll preach it to your cadets. You'll sit in bars like this, pickled in regret, and tell horror stories to wide-eyed fools. Silence. Even the neon sign buzzing half-price shots until collapse seemed muted. The veteran stood, swaying slightly. He saluted with the empty bottle. So here's the moral, hatchlings. If command orders you to invade Earth, don't. If they tell you humanity is weak, laugh in their faces. If they hand you a rifle and a map with blue oceans and green continents, put the rifle to their head instead. It's quicker, cleaner, and far less terrifying. He staggered toward the door. Before it hissed shut, he turned one last time. You want my strategic analysis? Fine. Humans don't win wars. They cancel the concept of war itself. They make you remember, and remembering is worse than dying. The door closed. His footsteps faded, and in the silence he left behind, not one recruit touched the complimentary breadbasket by the bar.